Guardians, welcome to another episode of Destiny 2 Builds. Today, we're diving into the fiery depths of Solar Titan with the Infinite Ignitions build, unveiling a build that will ignite the battlefield with relentless power. With Consecration at your fingertips, prepare to witness solar explosions engulfing every corner of the battlefield. But this build isn't just about firepower, it's about survivability, improved ability regeneration, and the unwavering ability to heal both yourself and your allies. From facing overwhelming hordes of enemies to confronting the mightiest bosses, this Solar Titan build offers you the confidence to take on any situation with unwavering resolve. So strap in, Guardians, as we unveil the ultimate Solar Titan build designed to dominate PVE content in Destiny 2. Prepare to bask in the flames of victory, rally your fire team, and join us as we ignite the battlefield with explosive power. Remember to leave a like if you found this video helpful, and if you like seeing build videos and other helpful Destiny 2 content, consider hitting that subscribe button. With that being said, let's jump right on into it. Solar Titan has always been one of my favorite classes, and it's because of how strong its melee is, and the pure healing power from Restoration. Thing is, it can get boring running around and just bonking everything in sight, so I thought it was time for a change. While I like the idea of Consecration, I could never really figure out how to make it feel as effective as Bonk Titan. With patch 7.3.5, Consecration got a minor buff on travel distance and speed, so I thought it was time to give it another look. Well, I finally figured it out on how to make it feel like the strength of Bonk Titan while keeping the same survivability. This build excels at wiping out waves of enemies, keeping you alive, and even spreading the healing to your teammates. So let's dive into the build and break down how it works. Alright, taking a look at the abilities, first up for our super, we are taking Burning Maul. Hammer of Soul is a good all-around option in most scenarios, but since we aren't using Soul Invictus, Burning Maul is the better option. This also leaves room for a hot swap to Pyrogale Gauntlets in case you want to deal more DPS to a boss. But if you don't want a hot swap, then don't really worry about it. As for the abilities, first up for our class ability, I like to take Rally Barricade. We have a ton of healing from Restoration and Cure, so I like to take Rally Barricade for its shorter cooldown. This is also a good option for DPS phases, since you and your team get increased reload speed, damage range, and flinch resistance just by popping your barricade. For a melee, I like to take Throwing Hammer. The main reason for Throwing Hammer is in case you want to use a strong melee without running or sliding. This can be used in damage phases, especially this season, where you can weaken a boss just by throwing your hammer at it. We'll mainly be using the melee from Consecration though, so don't think we're going to be bonking everything like you do with the bonk build. And for a grenade, I personally like to take the Healing Grenade. With the new changes to how Restoration timer is increased, I found the Healing Grenade to be the best option. While I like the damage from other grenade options, this Healing Grenade lets you proc the increased ability regeneration more often and encourages you to throw your grenades at your teammates to give them healing and proc Ember of Benevolence. Alright, for our aspects, first up we're taking Roaring Flames, so that final blows with solar abilities start to work up stacks of Roaring Flames, maxing out at 3 stacks. At max stacks, this buff is a 73% increase to our ability damage, and this applies to all ability damage, including our super, melee, and even ignition damage. Having Roaring Flames active massively increases the damage from our next aspect, Consecration. This makes it so that while sliding after running, you can activate your melee to send a wave of solar energy that deals some damage but also applies Scorch. This first part only consumes half of your melee energy. The real beauty of this aspect comes from the second part. After activating this first part, you can use your melee again while you're still in the air to slam back down into the ground, sending a second wave of solar energy that deals massively more damage, but more importantly, when it hits a Scorch target, an ignition happens. And ignitions are scaled based off of the damage from the original source, meaning that if we work up to Roaring Flames times 3, we have an increased 73% damage that stacks with Hoyle, our exotic, to provide an additional 20% damage, giving your melees and ignitions an additional 108% damage. This might not be as strong as something like Worm God or Synthoceps, but you get even more ability energy back from this build, making it completely worth it. And we use our Fragments to get back even more ability energy. So the first fragment we're taking a look at is Ember of Searing. This makes it so that defeating Scorch targets will give back 8 to 25% melee energy, depending on the rank of the enemy, and it'll also create a fire sprite. Since our first wave from Consecration scorches targets, if we kill 3 targets, we'll get anywhere from 24% to 75% of our melee back just from using our melee. This initial boost helps us to repeat the process of spamming our melee. This process is taken to the next level with our next fragment, Ember of Benevolence. Now when we give Restoration, Cure, or Radiant to our teammates, we get an added 400% ability regeneration to all all of our abilities. And that pairs perfectly with Hoil, since whenever we do use an ability, it's going to increase the regeneration rate for our other abilities, making it super easy to use and get back all of your abilities. I love to take heal clip weapons with this build since it really likes to take advantage of Ember of Benevolence. And it also means you can throw your grenade at teammates to have another way to proc this fragment. And this fragment pairs perfectly with our next fragment, Ember of Torches, so that now powered melee hits will give you and your allies Radiant. Not only are we getting 25% increase to our weapon damage, but using our powered melee near allies also procs Ember of Benevolence, increasing our ability regeneration by that extra 400%. And for our final fragment, I like to take Ember of Empyrean, making it so that killing with solar weapons or abilities will extend your restoration up to 15 seconds. While you could switch this out, I like to have the lingering restoration in case there aren't any enemies nearby to kill. Alright, let's talk about ways to improve the build. First up, for our stats, I am going for 100 resilience. The added 30% damage resistance is definitely nice, but mainly it lowers our class ability cooldown. And with Hoil, we want to use all of our abilities as much as possible. After that, I like to shoot for 100 strength. Healing Grenade already has a short cooldown, and we want to spam Consecration everywhere, so giving our melee the shortest cooldown possible is our best option. After that, you're looking for roughly 60 in Discipline and 50 in Recovery and Intellect. If you need to drop any stats, Mobility is the worst option, and Recovery is the second worst, so make sure you can get roughly 60 in Discipline and 50 in Intellect, but having 50 in Recovery is nice as well. Alright, for our armor mods, first up, our helmet. I am taking Harmonic Siphon, so that rapid solar weapon kills will create orbs. Orbs will help out later on, so we want multiple ways to create them. And I like to pair that with Heavy Ammo Finder, so that we generate more heavy ammo bricks. This isn't 100% necessary, but I love having more heavy in basically every scenario. And for our final helmet mod, I am taking Hands On. We will be using our melee a ton, so now we can get back more super energy from it as well. Alright, for our gauntlet mods, first up, we're taking Heavy Handed. We will be using our melee a ton, so this is a good option to generate more orbs for more ability energy. And I also like to pair that with Impact Induction, so that melee damage grants grenade ability energy. This can only proc once every 7 seconds, though it will help to get our healing grenade back and continue the cycle. And finally, I also like to take Harmonic Loader. This is going to increase the reload speed for our solar weapons. I mainly like to take this since I like to take a weapon with heal clip, which makes us want to reload very often, so it's only going to help that process even more. For our chest mods, I like to take 3 resistance mods. Typically, I like to take one of each element. In this case, that would be Harmonic Siphon, Arc, and Void. Though this is going to be a melee build, so you could alternatively drop either Arc or Void and add in a melee damage resistance. Though it's kind of up to you and what content you're doing. Alright, moving on to the legs, I like to take 2 Solar Weapon Surge mods. And this is going to increase our solar weapons by an added 17% damage. And that does stack with Radiant, so our weapon should be dealing massive damage. And I also like to pair that with Invigoration. We will be making a ton of orbs from weapons and melee kills. This will help spam Consecration even more by giving us 10% back to our melee whenever we pick up an orb. And for our mark, I like to take Outreach, so that we get 12% melee energy whenever we use our class ability. We're shooting to get back our melee as much as possible, and this just helps with that process. I do like to also pair that with Powerful Attraction. Because we're using Hoil, we want to spam our barricade as much as possible, so this just helps us pick up any nearby orbs. And that also pairs perfectly with our last mod, Reaper, so that after using our barricade, our next weapon kill will generate an orb. For the seasonal artifact, this season is perfect for solar builds, so I like to take all of our solar perks, being Kindling Trigger, Flint Striker, Torch, Heart of the Flame, and Raise of Precision to deal more damage with solar weapons and super and create more ignitions. Alright, let's talk about weapons. First up, for our kinetic slot. Sadly, a 1-2 punch shotgun doesn't work with concentration, so I like to take a weapon that hits hard for bosses and mini bosses. Some of the best options would be Heritage or Succession, and any build that uses a matching element as the primary weapon or ability spam works very well with these, since you can get recombination leading to one super strong shot. You could also take a shotgun with Trench Barrel, like Until Its Return. This can roll with Overflow and Trench Barrel so that you can deal increased damage and never have to reload. Or you can take a personal favorite of mine, which is the Scatter Signal, for more boss DPS when it's paired with something like Dragon's Breath. And for our energy slot, a solar weapon with Heal Clip and Incandescent is ideal, since it can proc both Ember of Benevolence and Searing. However, if you don't have a weapon with both, then go for a weapon with Heal Clip so you can proc Ember of Benevolence more often, getting all of your abilities back more often. There are some fantastic options out there, and even craftable versions, that have both perks. For an auto, you can take Abyss Defiant that drops from Crota's End, or the Summoner that can drop from Trials. For a pulse, I like this season's Adhortive, but the new version of Darkest Before that drops from Prophecy can also now roll with both. I just don't have a roll to try it out, so I can't really recommend it too much yet. You can even take something like the heliocentric sidearm for an even more close-up option. All of these weapons can roll with both heal clip and incandescent, but like I said, if you can't get both of those perks, go for heal clip. And for a heavy weapon, I like to take a solar weapon. Dragon's Breath is my #1 option here. It does fantastic damage. However, if another fire team member is using it, then you could take some of the following. If you want a legendary rocket, Apex Predator is the go-to. Or you can take Galley for an exotic to help buff your teammates' rockets. If you want another legendary option, then I'd probably run a strand weapon to match our primary and then swap out my surge mods. Some good options could include the Semiotician with the new rocket buff. Or you could take the Cataphract GL3 with bait and switch, which can output some massive damage. Guardians, we've reached the end of our journey through the fiery depths of the Infinite Ignitions build. From the blazing explosions that engulfed the battlefield to the survivability from Restoration that carried us through every encounter. This build has proven its worth in every part of PvE content. Remember, mastering these builds is only the beginning. Experiment with different combinations and tweak your loadouts to suit your playstyle, and never stop honing your skills. If you found this video helpful or just enjoyed seeing a new perspective, feel free to like the video and leave a comment down below on what you might change or how you'd improve the Infinite Ignitions build. Keep an eye out for future videos as we continue to explore the ever-evolving world of Destiny 2. Until then, may the threads of fate be ever in your favor. This is Lucky Mech, signing off. See you on the next adventure, Guardians.